Hey, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tom LaHue. We're going to talk about Enneagram Type 2s today. The giver, the helper, the nurturer, the connector, the befriender, the care bears. Okay, well, anyway, we're going to be looking at a book called The Unfiltered Enneagram by Elizabeth Orr. She is an Enneagram Type 8. And I just have to warn you, this is unfiltered, okay? So she doesn't pull any punches. I'm sure she probably does from her own perspective, but this is a pistol. This book is sharp, it's kind of stingy, it's kind of spicy, and it's going to be challenging. And one thing that I kind of picked up over the years is twos don't like to be challenged like this. So this video could be offensive to you if you don't like being exposed, you don't like seeing that darker side. Twos want to think of themselves in a certain way as saintly, as loving, as kind. And it's not that you're trying to pretend to be that. I think you actually are that at your best. But there's also a dark side that, could be kind of obscured from you that maybe you don't want to pay attention to. And this book is all about facing that dark side or that idealized self, you might say. So before we get started, just a reminder, in the description below is a link to my website, tomlahue.com. I do offer Enneagram coaching for you or as a couple. You can sign up for a one appointment or 3 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever. And I also have classes available on demand and classes from time to time available live on Zoom. I've got one coming up right now. At the making of this video, it's coming up soon on Enneagram relationship coaching. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, check out the video, like and subscribe and comment and all that stuff. All right, let's jump into this. And I got to admit, I read through this yesterday, and look, I really do read, okay? So I read through this yesterday, I underlined and highlighted, and then I just kind of glanced at it today. But we're going to do this together. It's probably going to be kind of a long video. I apologize about that. But let me just hit some highlights, okay? So she says, twos, they tend to be, let's see, how does she say it? Twos tend to be afforded more grace than other types. Like, nobody wants to make you guys mad. Nobody wants to upset you. And it's really hard to kind of argue with you because, after all, you're just doing what you do from a place of love. You're just doing what you do because you care so much. And sometimes you might not know how your actions could come across to other people in an unpleasant way. Because, well, we tend to over-pathologize fours and maybe under-pathologize twos. And I heard that from a two, from Beatrice Chestnut. She talked about that, and she herself is a two. I got to be where I can see this. Well, I'm going to have to use my glasses. So, all right, this is what she says. Twos tend to be afforded the most grace and benefit of the doubt for their flaws. After all, we're just trying to be helpful. And so we know that about you, and so we're careful, like, to be harsh and critical. Twos don't like it when we're critical. Ones definitely don't like it when we're critical, but twos, you kind of come into this world like I'm very pleasing to people. And when you get the sense that people are not pleased by your behaviors or your actions, that can be very traumatizing. All right, so what does she say? You sometimes don't see how harmful the impact of your words or actions can be. And we tend to go easier on twos than most other types. And I'd say that's probably true because twos can be very sensitive. You may already be offended. I may have already lost you. I'm offended. And see, that's what I'm talking about is, pride is a difficult sin to talk about. It's a difficult sin to see, and the sin of the two is pride. And, pride gets wounded easily. Pride is puts up the defenses and says, not me. I'm not like that. I don't want to talk about this anymore. I need to get away from here and talk about somebody else. I honestly just care about people. I'm sorry if I care too much about people. She says there's often a lack of mutuality in relationships, and she says that it is by design of the two. The two create sort of an imbalance in the relationship. Now, maybe you don't set out to do that, but pride does do that. Pride does create an imbalance. Like, I'm here to take care of you. I'm here to serve you. I'm here to meet your needs. You remember the defense mechanism of type 2s is repression, which means you repress your own needs. Like, you don't want to be a person with a lot of needs because you kind of got the message that people with a lot of needs, other people don't want to make time for that. You make time for it, and your radar goes out to pick up what people need and to want to meet those needs. But you yourself may not feel like you're allowed to have needs. You don't want to be seen as a needy person or a person that needs a lot from others. Although you do, you're a human being and we all have needs, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you tend to elicit empathy from others. Let's see. Everything you're doing for us and everything you're carrying for everyone else, puts you in a position of the servant, 2-wing 1, the servant, 2-wing 3, the host or hostess. And so she says, her experience is we tend to let our frustrations with the 2 slide. We tend to beat ourselves up like, well, I can't say this, I can't be this way because after all, they're just trying to be helpful. After all, they mean well. After all, if there's been some problem, they're trying to be helpful. And so you may not get confronted as much as another type might get confronted with your behaviors or with your actions. 2s are already suffering enough, and we don't want to add to criticism, insult to injury, suffering under the weight of all that has to be done to take care of everybody else in the family or everybody else at work. So I just want to hit some highlights here and talk about them a little bit. The self-sacrifice can be harmful. Yeah, it can be harmful to you because you can get resentful and bitter. I mean, think about the person that you love most in the world right now. Just think about them. Like, maybe close your eyes, think about them. And how do you feel about them? Do you really feel love and care, or do you feel some level of resentment and frustration that they're not really maybe caring about you or putting your needs first or loving you in a way that feels meaningful to you? And under this, so type 2s tend to think of themselves as sweet, giving, loving, affectionate, generous, selfless, and warm. I mean, you probably think, well, I should just put that on my gravestone. That was me. That's the kind of teacher I want to be. That's the kind of worker I want to be. That's the kind of mom or dad I want to be. Sweet, loving, generous, kind, warm, affectionate. And realize like all those things are great. Those things are great. They will endear people to you. Endure people to you. They will endear people to you. And very true, like you win more flies with honey, right? And 2s are the honey drippers of the Enneagram, spreading out their honey everywhere. That doesn't sound right. But they know exactly how indispensable they are. They give people compliments. They show a lot of affection, a lot of appreciation, a lot of gratitude. And in a sense, you're kind of showing the rest of us what your expectations are in the relationship, which is very hurtful when you don't get that kind of response. After all that you do and after all the love and attention and care that you show, when you're not shown that appreciation and you're taken for granted, how does it make you feel? Well, it probably makes you feel unloved, unvalued, uncared for, not appreciated, not respected. And you're probably going to either react by aggressively or passive aggressively withdrawing and pulling away. And the other person in your relationship may not even know what's going on. They may not even realize that they're taking you for granted. They just start to expect that you're always going to show up in this loving, kind, caring way. And so they just take you for granted. And you may have to like advocate for your needs a little bit. Like, I need you to say thank you, or I need you to show appreciation. That can be an uncomfortable conversation because, again, you don't want to have needs. You do have needs, but it's maybe hard for you to advocate or express those needs so that the other person kind of knows what the rules of the game are. They probably would give you that appreciation if they really understood that you needed it. But you don't seem to need it. You seem to want to do this because it's who you are, but what are your expectations of what you're going to get back from this? What's the reciprocal transaction here? Okay. Maybe you've never thought about this. Um, Interesting. 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 Okay, where are we at? They know exactly how indispensable they are. There's the pride, right? I'm indispensable. They'd be lost without me, Dr. Tom. They'd be lost without me if I wasn't there to keep everything moving, to keep everything together, to keep everybody on schedule. They'd be lost without. How do you feel when you get the message back that no, we wouldn't, we'd be fine without you? That's got to be about the most devastating message imaginable. Like, no, everything was great. Hey, I hope you had a great trip. We were completely fine. Dad took care of everything. Okay. Um, because the dynamic of dependency in their relationships is by their own careful engineering. In other words, what she's saying is she's kind of calling you guys malicious here. She's saying you guys, the way you orchestrate and engineer relationships tends to be in a dependent sort of way. Like you create people a dependency in people on you for your flattery, for your encouragement, for your kindness, for your care, for your love, for your affection, for your cheerleading, whatever it is. You kind of create these kind of dependent relationships where people, draw something from you. And with that is going to come some kind of obligation, whether you've thought that through and formalized that or not, or whether it's still kind of murky and informal to you, with that, there may be some expectation that after all I've given to you, after all the love I've shown to you, after all the attention, there's an expectation or an obligation that there's a receipt for this. Don't shut me down yet, and realize this isn't my book. I'm just analyzing it and trying to express what I think the author's saying, okay? If you hate it, hate the book. Don't hate me. I'm your friend. I love you. Okay. So she says at the heart center, okay. All the heart center types are confronting, okay. I don't know why it like messes with the light when I put my glasses on, but all the heart center types are contortion artists. Contortion artist. You know what that means? Like you've been with people, you sort of show up in the way that's going to get the best response from people. Oh, Tom, that's so funny. That's how you would get a great response from me. Laugh at my jokes. I'm a 7. Oh, Tom, you're so funny. Oh, Tom, you're just so. So you could contort to that, twisting themselves into the most palatable form. And I think like 4s and 5s and 8s, they're going to see through this like with discernment. What's interesting though is 4s are a part of that group, but 4s, they might see through that flattery and that niceness and kind of wonder what your angle is. But 4s themselves, in their own way, contort themselves to be outstanding or outliers or unique or special or different. So they do the same thing in their own way, but they won't like necessarily the way you might tend to contort yourself in order to win people's value or win people's estimation. I wanted to say appreciation, but really when you think about those heart types, they all want to be esteemed. They've all three have a problem of where does our value come from? Does our lives matter? And 2s go out and matter to people. And when you get that sonar message back that I'd be lost without you, thank you so much, you really helped me out, then you get this sense of like, well, see, I do matter. I matter to this person. And 3s, they are more objective and just go out and add value to themselves in a more admirable way by excelling or achieving. And 4s, they become unlike everybody else, and therefore unique, special, and different. And there's a sense of significance that you get in being unlike everyone else. Okay, so what else does she say? Twisting themselves into the most palatable form. So there's kind of a sadness here too. I remember reading that a long time ago, kind of a sadness with the worth and value types, that there's sort of a giving up of yourself because nobody would really love me if I was just here. Nobody would really care about me if I didn't win. Nobody would really notice me if I didn't have piercings and tattoos on my face and crazy bangs and goofy glasses. Nobody would notice me. I would just blend in and not be anything significant or unique or special. And so there's a certain sadness about like giving up on your essential self in order to become this idealized self. We all do this, okay? It's not just you guys, but that's kind of calling out the way you do it. So twos selflessly start to shape shift into prioritizing everyone else above themselves. Caring about everybody else, caring about your babies. I just love my kids. I just love my grandkids. I just love my, and seeing yourself in that role, prioritizing all of that. And again, that's not bad. Care about one another. You, in your best, you teach the rest of us what love and care and concern and all those wonderful things are. So don't stop doing that. It's just be careful that you're putting so much weight on other people's estimation of you for your own value. Your value doesn't come from what you do for others. That may be hard for you to hear. Maybe you need to say that again. Your value doesn't come from what you do for us or what you do for others. Your value comes from who you are as a person. Created in the image of God, you have value. And what do your babies do for you? What do your grandbabies do for you? Yet you value them. All they do is make messes, cry, and complain, right? And make demands. But you value them more than anything else in this world. And your value doesn't change just because you don't see it or understand your value. And you could get confused thinking that your value comes from what you offer to other people or how you've achieved or how special and significant you are. Your value doesn't change just because you don't recognize that, or it's hard for you to recognize that value. So, and also notice how frustrated you could be when you give and take care of others so much and they don't reciprocate the message to you. Thank you. We really appreciate you. You have tremendous value to us. When you don't get that message back, there's a tendency now for you to become bitter. Actually, what will probably happen is you'll double down your efforts and you'll work twice as hard to be impressive with your help. Amazing people with the links that you will go to remember their birthdays or get that special gift for them or whatever. You'll double down to try to really hard get that message. Just like a 3, runs a marathon, or a 3 goes through management training in order to get this message back that they have value. You might double down your efforts. And then what if you still don't get, what if you're trying to love a 5 and they just are greedy with their affection? They're greedy with their words. They're greedy with their kindness. You're probably going to get discouraged. And you may be very discouraged in your relationship right now. One of the things that I find to be true in working with people is 2s often have very difficult times in their marriages, very difficult times in their dominant relationships. As loving and as kind and as generous as you are, you may not feel very loved in your own marriage or with your own family. You may feel more loved out there serving at the Salvation Army or the homeless center or at church, and you may spend all your time there because you get the feedback that you appreciate or that you are appreciated. And you may find yourself frustrated and hurt and angry at the people that you love the most. The struggle is real, my friends. The struggle is real. And I meet many 2s who have a lot of resentment and bitterness. And I'm not saying you do, okay? Hear me. I'm not saying you do. I'm just saying you might. And you might want to pause long enough to get to know that about yourself if it's there. It's not going to go away by ignoring it. You're going to have to process it. So you acknowledge it, you process it, and then you reconceptualize it. We can talk about that later sometime. Okay. I just want people to feel loved. So there's the message the 2s kind of telling themselves. I just want people to feel loved. Why is that so important to you? Because it's important to you to feel loved. Right? I want to feel loved too, but it's not necessarily going to drive all of my behaviors for the day. I also just want to be happy. I also just want to experience something new. I also want to do something novel or go on an adventure. But why is it so important to you for people to feel loved? Because there's something missing in yourself. You see that? You know what it's like to not feel loved. Maybe you know what it's like to not be appreciated. Maybe you know what it's like to not be at the center of somebody's affection and attention, and that feels very painful to you. And so you don't want anybody else to feel like that. First of all, it might be helpful for you to realize you can't make people feel stuff. I mean, you can attend to them and you can care for them and you can show all these loving things, but at the end of the day, you can't make somebody feel something. And that may be a hard realization for you, is that you can't make somebody feel something, because you may say, "You made me feel upset." Okay. All right. So I just want people to feel loved. She says, I believe that twos believe that sentiment about themselves with their whole heart, their essential state. So this is who you truly are. This is your good, perfect, awesome. This is okay. Your essential state is a place of freedom that is rooted and grounded in an honest knowledge of who you are. And see, that's why you integrate to fours, because fours are always trying to figure out who they are and what makes them unique and how are they special. And if you can take the time to sort of relax your need to meet all the needs around you and focus a little more on who you are as a person and finding your worth and value outside of the estimation of other people, that's kind of like that line to four for you, that integration to four. Like, I love the appreciation of others. I love to be surrounded by love and support and all that, but I'm okay if I'm not. I'm okay. I'm still a person of value, even if I'm not adding value to everyone else in their life. Um, and they're able to then love people without expecting reciprocation or transaction. They're able to truly love people without needing some kind of response. You know, I'm going to say this phrase, and it's a phrase that fits parenting, but I think it could be, I think it'd be something that you could think about as a type two. If I need you to like me, I'm not really free to love you. If I need you to like me, I'm not really free to love you. And think about that as parents. If you need your kids to like you, then you're not really free to put restrictions on them or to tell them no or to, make them do their homework or eat their vegetables or whatever it is, because I need you to like me. And if I need you to like me, I'm not really free to love you. And think about that like in your relationships. If I need you to respond to me in a certain way, is what I'm giving you really love? If I don't get the response from you that I'm expecting, so therefore I withdraw from you, or therefore I get upset with you, is what I was showing you actually altruistic love? Because true love is demonstrated whether there is an appropriate response or not. In fact, love your enemies, pray for those who are persecuting you, love your neighbor as yourself. There's no guarantee that those people are going to respond in a reciprocal transactional way, but yet we're still supposed to show love to one another. Okay, so she says, twos are remarkable in their ability to meet the very universal need to feel loved. Okay, true. Okay, now watch this. This is terrible. This is terrible. I'm going to tell you it's terrible, okay? I'm just going to read it and you can think about it. But as brightly as their beautiful qualities shine, nurturing, selfless, kind, thoughtful, generous, sweet. That's wonderful. As brightly as that shines, the shadow of the two, wait for it, it's hard, okay? The shadow of the two, and let's say maybe you're not there now. Maybe there was a time when you were there, or maybe there's a time in the future where you may find yourself here. I'm not saying you're here now, but this is what she says. The shadow of the two is dark and cold, manipulative, conditional with their love, and deeply entitled, and they give in order to get. When their needs have been neglected for long enough, they can become venomous and vengeful, because by simply enjoying the kindness of the two, the recipients of their generosity aren't holding up their end of the bargain. They're not holding up their end. They're not doing what they agreed to do. And there's that transactional reciprocal nature of love. Like, after all I've done for you, you don't really care. And notice that is a very disrespectful way of thinking. If you don't respond to me in the way that I think you should, then obviously you don't care. And I've had many conversations with like a two and the husband or a two and the wife. And I'll ask the spouse, do you love your wife? Yes, absolutely. Do you love your husband? Yes, absolutely. And the two will sit there not feeling loved at all. I want you to see that, sometimes it may be the spouse's fault, but I want you to see that that is your fear of not being loved. That lives inside you. It's not necessarily caused by the people around you. It's a fear that lives within a two. When you tell me that you're a two and you don't feel loved, I'm not surprised. That is the whole heartbeat of being a two. I mean, everything is done from that point of view of I want people to feel loved because I know what it's like to struggle with this. I know what it's like. I know how painful it is to not feel appreciated, cared about, valued, and loved. And then you're in a relationship with somebody that you love that, says that they love you and you feel unloved and uncared for. It doesn't surprise me. That's kind of the whole struggle of it. And yet your spouse is literally saying in front of of everybody, I love them more than I love my life itself, more than anything else. And you're just, no, 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 no. It's kind of like a six telling everybody they're scared, and their spouse is like, we've got insurance. We've got, a security system. We've got, and they go through the list. We've got watchdogs. And they still feel scared. Why? Because it's within the six to have fear and then look for who's causing it. But it lives inside the six. And these feelings of feeling not cared for, not valuable, not really loved, not appreciated, those things live inside you. And now you're looking out in your external world for who's causing you to feel this way. Maybe you're just a two feeling the stuff that twos feel. You're just a two struggling with the things twos struggle with. And if you give more focus and attention to this, it could actually damage the relationship that you desperately want. It could damage the connection that you desperately want. Okay. So powerful. Other people aren't holding up their end of the. Okay. So self neglect, self sacrifice, this toxic pattern of self sacrifice and self neglect. No, she calls it toxic. You probably think it's admirable to be self sacrificing. Well, it is. Um, I would say like this, if you sacrifice for somebody else, there's the opportunity to open the door for resentment. What if we could negotiate a compromise or negotiate something that we both feel good about where neither one of us has to be, in this relationship that isn't even? And so you self sacrifice and self neglect. You're sacrificing for everybody else while neglecting and repressing your own needs. What does that have a tendency to build up? It has a tendency to build up a toxic, bitter resentment. And you may not realize how you're opening the door for resentment in your own marriage. And resentment, guys, that is the killer of marriages. All this stored up malice and anger and bitterness, it's like cancer that's just going to kill the marriage. Okay. They overextend themselves right into the lives of others, taking responsibility for fulfilling the needs of other people while willfully turning a blind eye to their own needs. No, I'm fine. I'm good. I don't need anything. Everything's good. The Lord and I, He's got my back. I'll be fine, doctor. I know I'm dying, but the good Lord has a plan for me. And see, I'm fine. Are you fine? Are you really fine? Are you really okay? What can I do for you? Notice how uncomfortable that question is for you. Hey, what can I do to help you? What can I do to take care of you? How do you need to take care of you? That could be a very uncomfortable line of questioning for a two because they feel much more comfortable with baby on hip, making pancakes to serve everybody else. Let me get all these towels for everybody. Let me get out there and fix your car for you. I'm here to help you and take care, put your tile in and take care of your needs. But maybe very uncomfortable for you to actually take an evaluation of yourself and how you're really doing and to be honest about that and recognize, I'm not doing good. I'm not doing good. Acknowledging that could be the first step, in healing. Okay, so taking responsibility for everybody else, lying to themselves that they somehow need less than the rest of us. You're strong. See, under stress, you look like an 8, strong, powerful. I don't need anything. I'm good. I'm okay. They can ignore their own needs. Um, they have money in the bank and the expectation that others will do as much for them. So you've earned. You say it. That's what she's saying is that you've deposited all this money into everybody else's bank, and now your bank is depleted. And now the expectation is they're going to then, but they may not be clear on this expectation. And so this creates an imbalance and an opportunity for you to get, hurt. And I think that's a good word for a lot of twos is just hurt. Maybe angry, but hurt. The core belief is love has to be earned. Like you go out into this world and people are not loving, they're not kind, they're not gracious, they're mean to each other, they're oppressive, they're abusive, and people will just walk past you and not smile, they'll not give you the attention, not give you the time of day, and love really has to be earned. And that's kind of the core belief that she points out. This world is an uncaring, cold, deficient place. And I don't disagree with that. I'm a Christian, right? I believe in the Garden of Eden, and I believe that we don't live there anymore, and the world we live in is marred and broken and flawed and, is not necessarily a loving place. It's a wilderness. We live in this wilderness, right? Where the animals want to eat us, where people are, attack each other and hurt each other. So the 2 looks around to see how cruel the world may seem to be, and it's easy for the rest of us to how they reach that conclusion. There just isn't enough love in the world. And the focus of your attention then goes into where can I fill the gap for somebody else? Where can I show up and offer love and kindness and warmth and brighten someone's day? Where can I show up to fill that gap? And I think genuinely you're thinking about the other person. Maybe 20% of this, without realizing it, might be I feel like that gives me a place of value in this world, is to show up and be that nurse, to show up and be that teacher, to show up and be that caregiver. You know, it gives me a sense of value and purpose. And I would say that's great. That's a great value and purpose to have, to meet needs and to care for others. That's a good thing. And it's not a bad thing. Just acknowledge that. That's all I'm asking is that you acknowledge that part of what motivates you to show up in such a big flamboyant way in your care and concern for others is there's something that you get out of this. Even if they don't appreciate you, there's something that you get out of this. You get to go to bed at night with this sense about yourself that I am generous, loving, sweet, kind, caring. I'm not like other people. Can you see that worth and value, that need to stand out, that need for significance? It's not like a 4 that dresses up and looks funny and stands out, or a 3 that stands out because they're exceptional. It's I'm standing out because I'm not like this cold, dark, hateful world. I'm a bright light. And I'm not saying that's bad. I'm saying that's good. I'm agreeing with you. This is a good thing. All I'm asking is that you acknowledge that it's not just about the need out there. There's a need in you to meet that need. And then it's fair. Then it's fair. Because now it's not just I'm such a loving, kind, sweet person. I'm just doing, what any loving, kind, sweet person would do. I'm just asking you to acknowledge that there is something within you that feels valuable when you show up in this very valuable way. Just acknowledge that, and it will soften the blow when you don't get the reciprocation that you desire, because you always have your own estimation of yourself. Like, I made a difference today, and that may be all you really need, is just that knowledge of yourself that I made a difference in this person's life, even if I wasn't thanked, even if I wasn't appreciated, even if I was misunderstood. Wow. The core fear is that you have to work extra hard to win the love that you hope to experience. Like, it's not enough to just to just show up and just be a wife or be a husband or be a church attender or be an employee. You got to work extra hard to overwhelm or overcome the obstacles. You know what I'm talking about. You meet somebody who's hard to get to know, or other people don't really like them, and you may see that as a challenge. Like, I'm going to get through. You wait and see. I'm going to break that shell. I'm going to get in there. Um, so let's see. As they preoccupy themselves, let me just read this sentence. As they preoccupy themselves with other people's needs, they silently start to wonder whether, is anyone looking out for my unmet needs? Is anybody concerned about me and my needs? Does anybody really care about me and my needs? Of course. Why wouldn't you feel that way? So the idealized self-image, the way, in other words, the way you want to think about yourself that may or may not be super in touch with reality, the way you want to think about yourself is, I am intuitively generous, tireless in my ability to give, and a constant source of praise and affirmation for people around me. And now that's, she calls the idealized self-image. I'm tireless. I'm commit, and twos can be every bit as driven as threes to meet people's needs and to help people and to, connect with people, to be a connector. And this is, when she talks about the idealized self, she's not saying that's a good thing. She's saying your essential self, that I have value and I know myself and I know my needs. Like that's your essential self. Your idealized self is kind of that false self. It's that person that you become when you're not so secure in how you feel about yourself. Then you must become this better version of yourself that goes out there and tirelessly cares about everybody and meets every need and feeds every orphan. And, that's exhausting, by the way. And people will actually applaud it. The more unhealthy you get, the more people will applaud it. And the more the takers will enter your life, leading you to rat and ruin, you might say. So I'm intuitively generous. I'm tireless in my ability to give. Are you really? Because a minute ago, you were very hurt and you felt very empty because the people in your life weren't giving back. So are you tireless in your ability to give? Nobody is. You can only give what you have. And when you don't have anything left, there's nothing left to give. And that may be right where you feel right now, like I got nothing left to give. But yet, I can't advocate for my needs. I can't tell my husband what I need. I can't tell him what I want. Or if you do, it's like you pile it all up, for a month, and then you go down this list, like you're in this eight zone, and you just go down this list of complaints like that have been building up and building up, and overwhelm your partner with now your commands like an 8. Okay. So you become a martyr. That's the word. And that's hard to relate to, a martyr. Somebody who has sacrificed everything for me. How am I supposed to relate to that? Like, there's definitely an imbalance here. I thought it was an equal, we're in this together, but it's hard to complain about my problems to a martyr who's given up so much. So twos love freely under no contract with no strings attached. That's them at their best. But the idealized self, by contrast, has a lot of strings attached. A lot of strings attached. You've earned people's love by being self-sacrificing, giving, and intuitively caring. You've come alongside and been the wind beneath our wings. And we need to acknowledge that and say thank you and be appreciative. And we should. But the problem is sometimes people don't, and they won't even think about it. The defense mechanism is repression. Repression is, I'm fine. I don't have any needs. I'm okay. I'm not one of those needy people. I'm drawn to needy people and I want to help them, but I myself am not a needy person. Repression of your own needs, of anything yucky within themselves that might threaten their image as a selfless saint. You don't have to be a saint. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be always, careful to not walk on the grass. The real people in your life will value authenticity. Sometimes we're nice because we're afraid to be authentic. Look at that fight between 2 and 4. Twos, be nice. Fours, be authentic. Which one's right? Well, fours could probably learn to be nicer, and twos could definitely learn to be more authentic. And if you could go to 8 before you end up at 8, it might really improve your relationships, your dominant relationships like your marriage. If you could go to 8, be honest and truthful, and advocate for your needs. I think the sin of the 8 is lust, right? I want what I want. I'm loyal to my own needs. I'm loyal to myself. If you could go there a little bit willingly, then maybe you won't end up slamming down on that, every 2 months and overwhelming the people in your life or detaching from the people in your life. She talks about 2s and 9s sometimes getting confused. I think it's much more likely that a 9 thinks that they're a 2. And they're like 9s, they tend to value other people's opinions and beliefs, and 2s tend to value other people's needs. Like, I need to be responsible to help meet those needs. A 9 may not necessarily feel responsible to meet those needs. They just don't want a conflict. They don't want fights. Repression keeps the 2's ego structure in place. Repressing all your needs helps you remain focused on other people's needs and keep depositing into their bank account. So you just keep depositing into other people's bank account while yours becomes more and more depleted. And then you become angry because other people are not, making restitution. They're not depositing back into your account. And that could be just through interaction. That could be through time they want to spend with you. It could be from valuing your company. It could be through their positive affirmations or their affection. It could be through a lot of things that you get that deposit. And you may find yourself keeping track of the imbalance, which is going to feel uncomfortable, and that makes you look like the martyr, and that creates this imbalance in the relationship because there is an imbalance. You've given so much and they haven't given back to the level of your expectation. So there's disappointment, there's hurt, and that makes it awkward. So they may decide not to come around and visit anymore because of this awkward imbalance, which just further makes you see, they don't really care. They don't really love me. They don't really want to be around me. Neglecting your own desires, 2s believe that they are never a burden to others with their own gross human needs, and thus they never withdraw from people's bank account because they never need anything. But one of the ways you feel close to people is by meeting their needs, but you're not letting anybody meet your needs. Or maybe you're upset that they don't just automatically know your needs. It's helpful to remember that I'm not a 2, and most people are not 2s, right? So they don't pick up on needs as clearly as you do. That doesn't mean they don't care. It just means they're not type 2s. 2s have a radar to pick up people's needs. So this selfless, sweet, idealized self-image, perfectly in place, charming the pants off of everybody, swoops in to nurture others. First, how much you do for others, and second, how little you ask for in return. So you're doing a lot for others and asking for very little in return. Living off of the empty calories of people's praise that you earn for taking care of them, and you just make yourself keep going without any of the support or any of the affection that you would like from others. Pride is the fuel for your righteous rage. Ooh, that doesn't sound good. Who am I, and am I worthy of love? Let's see. There's so much in this. I don't know that we're going to be able to cover all of it. Niceness and generosity is cloaked subtle manipulation, a covert way you end up in control of relationships, winning people over with heaping praise and wide-eyed wonder. You kind of believe you got the express pass to the doorway in that relationship. You know, when you go to Disney, you can spend more for the lightning lane. And that gives you the express pass right into the center of that person's attention, right to the center of that person's affection. And twos, they kind of feel like they should get that express pass pride, right? I'm unlike others. I should get the express pass. I should be most important to you after all I've done for you, right? And so this invisible tab needs to be paid of what they believe they are owed. All of these favors and kindnesses I've shown you over the years. Um, And they hope, she says, they hope that their partner will one day have that Saul on the road to Damascus moment where, oh my gosh, I'd be lost without him. Our whole company would fall apart without them. They are the centerpiece of everything, and everything would fall apart if it wasn't for them holding it all together. What is that? That's value. That's value. I'm valuable. I want to feel valuable. And there's nothing wrong with that. Just acknowledge it. That's all I'm saying is maybe you just need to acknowledge it. There's something within you that's off. And sometimes what you do doesn't come solely from a place of altruistic love, that there is a need within you that we all have as humans to feel valuable and important. And it's much easier when people reciprocate in those relationships and communicate that appreciation, then you get what you need. And I think that that's not a bad thing. It's just the person you live with may not understand that. You may have to pull them aside and say, look, I need appreciation. I have a need for admiration, a need for appreciation. It's not because I'm weak, it's because I'm broken, like every type is broken. You're broken in your way, I'm broken in mine. All I need sometimes is just a simple acknowledgement, a simple thank you, and then I feel so much better. All I need sometimes is just some genuine affection, some genuine kindness, some genuine appreciation. And when I don't have that, I start to go dark inside and I start to get bitter and upset. This is healing. This is good. This is good to acknowledge this and improve your way of relating to others. Um she goes on to say that whenever the relationship ends up in divorce, um the two will probably continue to perpetuate how loving and kind and forgiving they were and not see the genuine complaints of their partner, and then maybe even smear their partner. But I want to go down in everybody's estimation as I'm very tolerant, I'm very forgiving, I've been very loving, and I need everybody to see me that way as this marriage disintegrates and falls apart. It's important that I'm seen as the person that tried so hard, even though from the partner's point of view, it may not have always felt like that. Interesting. Twos have a hard time sometimes with spicy feelings, anger, resentment, annoyance, and vocalizing those. And she goes on to say the virtue is humility, not thinking too highly of yourself, remembering that you're only human, you're not a superhuman, you can't meet everybody's needs. You yourself have needs. It's not bad for you to have needs. That's just what it means to be a regular person. And then to work on boundaries, which can be challenging for twos. When you're so connected to other people, it's hard to know where those boundary lines are because you feel obligated to meet people's needs. So what do we want to take away from this? Well, like I said, it's not easy. It's sharp and it's jagged and it's a little pointy, but can be very helpful. And I think the overall message that I gather from this is you come into the world with this great capacity to love others and to receive love from others. And at your best, you really show that to the rest of us, what love really genuinely could look like. In your lower days, when things are not going so well, you're not giving love and attention as much as you're grading people's love and attention for you and wondering what's wrong with you or wrong with them, and evaluating other people's estimation or love for you. And realize that, a lot of people don't want to think about these kinds of things. They just want to go to work. We come home, we watch TV, we walk the dog. I never sit around and ever think, does my wife love me? Does my wife care about me? Does my husband value me? I thought everything was fine because I don't worry about this until you tell me that you don't love me or that you're, upset with me in some way. I don't ever think about it because it's not my greatest concern because I'm not a type 2. The fear doesn't live within me of being unloved, unvalued, uncared for. That's not a fear that dominates my thinking. And so the other person may not, your partner or relations or whoever it is that's you're in relationship with, they may not understand why we keep coming back to this topic, why we keep coming back to these problems of not feeling important or not feeling like your opinion matters or not feeling listened to. They may not understand why we keep coming back to that. But if you live with it too and they're upset with you, ask yourself, what have I done inadvertently? Probably it could have been on purpose, but chances are it was inadvertently that has caused this person, communicated to them that they don't have the level of importance in my life that they believe they deserve to after all they've done for me and how they've neglected their own needs in order to deposit into my bank account. And you'll probably start to get the answer like, oh, I understand a little bit better why they're upset with me. And then what can I do? Well, show affection, show kindness, apologize, and recognize I'm not responsible for your feelings, but I can try to help your feelings. I can try to have compassion on your brokenness by constantly trying to communicate to you your value and how important you are to me and how much you matter to me by the way I interact with you, by the way I treat you. But ultimately, I can never fix this problem for you. So the short fix is I can change how I relate to you to try to communicate the message back to you that you need by trying to meet your needs and trying to communicate all this care for you. But ultimately, the long fix is you got to work on you. And you got to recognize that all of us are a little broken, but, we're not alone in this world. And the Lord loves broken people. And all of us can be a little more compassionate with each other. Wow. Thank you guys for sticking around through this video. I hope it's been helpful and challenging and encouraging and all those things. And as always, be present to life. I'll see you next time.